Hey, hi all, welcome to the video. In this video, we'll look at, a gentle introduction to what is cross validation. Having started the hyperparameter tuning video, I think couple of days back, I thought it will be a good case to give you some introduction of what exactly is cross validation and why do we do it in the first place. So, if you look at a typical model training scenario, let's say if there are 100 records in the data set, we try to divide it into train and test, where train data set typically will have 70% of the records, which is like 70 rows, and the test data set will have 30% of the records, which is like 30 rows. I'm talking about a typical train test scenario. Now the problem is uh, we develop our model on the trained data set and then we test it on the test data set. And still, if you look at this, 30% of our data set is not used for training purpose, and this is almost true for all the instances where we are doing this split. And also, let's say if our data is really biased and if there are some irregular observations, then there might be a case where if you develop a model on, let's say, training data set, it might not function properly on test data set. This typical scenario is known as overfitting. So before, now let's not waste more time and quickly get on the topic. What do we exactly do in k-fold cross validation? So let's say we have a data set, and what exactly we do in the entire process is we divide the data set into k partitions, or which is also known as k folds. Let's say I'm doing 5-fold cross validation, and if there are 100 records in my data set, I will then create 5 individual data set of 20 records each, which are equal partition. Now, in the first instance, I will take the first part and I will take it separately. I will basically keep it separately, and then I will create a model on rest of the 4 individual parts. So I'll basically create my data set on 80 records, and then I will try to validate the results on the first part of the data set, which is also indicated in first. Now I will do all the computations. I will basically see how is my model preparing, how is my model faring on that validation data set, which is indicated in blue. This will form my first iteration. In the second iteration, what I will do, I will basically just hold the second part of the data set as a separate entity, and then I will train my model on first, third, fourth, and fifth data set. Again, the total number of records remaining the same. However, just that the portion which is used for validation is the second portion or the second fold. Likewise, I will do the third iteration, fourth iteration, and the fifth iteration. Now, the interesting thing to note here is throughout the entire process, all my data set has been used for model training, and the good thing is I have evaluated my model results on 5 individual holdout sample or validation sample, and in this way I sort of have tackled any overfitting or any bias in the data set. So in this way you can think of it as averaging off or rounding off any peculiar characteristics or any aberrations in the data set. Uh, if you basically study decision tree, there is a common problem there which is known as overfitting, and to a certain extent cross validation overcomes that. Now the simple thing is we can have 3-fold cross validation, 5-fold cross validation, or 10-fold cross validation also. As you can see, if we increase the number of folds, the amount of time it requires to train the model might increase, but it sort of gives satisfactory result, which we'll see in the next video, where we'll actually hyperparameterize with a 5-fold cross validation. Again, if I have to just simply uh, summarize whatever I have said, it is essentially used while training the model, where we divide our data sets into subset, which are also known as folds or partition. Let's say if I have to do a 5-fold, then I will build the model on the first 4 and then evaluate on the fifth, and then I will basically go on iterate till I have used all the single chunks of that fold as a validation data set. In other ways or in other language, I have used all the folds to basically train my model. So in the end, we average the performance of each fold, and subsequently we get the result. Uh, in the the next video, we'll look at how we can do hyperparameter tuning and cross validation using an R script on a credit data set or a credit default data set. If you like the video, do subscribe to my channel. Thank you.